Barry Switzer, a little bit concerned about where OU's headed and maybe the gap that's being created between Oklahoma and Texas. We'll discuss what he had to say coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. So Barry Switzer, the king, college football Hall of Famer, three-time national champion, Super Bowl champion, had this to say on the Paul Feinbaum show about Oklahoma and Texas. He says, we're short a lot of areas, Paul. We need help across the board, all across there. Defensively, we're probably better than we are offensively. We're short offensive line with running backs, receivers, quarterbacks. Every area of the offense needs help, and it's going to take a while to get there, but I think they can. Now, here's the interesting part. I don't know. I question sometimes with NIL whether we can or not, whether we can compete against Texas every year. They can raise more money than we can. We're a small state. We've only got 3.5 million people, and it's going to be more difficult than it is for the University of Texas, where they've got 35 million people. A wealthier state and people to be able to support the programs. We'll have to wait and see. Jay, what's your initial reaction whenever you saw that quote from Barry Switzer?
Sounds like the king is panicking. And I totally understand that with the state of affairs, he has a lot more access and information than I do. It doesn't truly feel like we're that far away. I feel like we're just this close, tongue in cheek, of course. But no, coming into this season, the wide receiver room was supposed to be the safety net, and we didn't get that. And so everything fell apart. Now we're going to have to make sure that we put veteran presence at every level just to help save us going into moving forward. And Brent Venables understands that. And I hope that he picks up the phone and calls these donors to say, hey, y'all told me to do it with this. I need more. We got people with money. We have a lot of billionaires floating around here. Please open up your books. Help us out. Do what Nick Saban did. When Nick Saban was quote unquote taking shots at what Jimbo Fisher and Deion Sanders back in the day, everyone was grabbing all of those clips and sound bites that he was providing, right? Well, he was doing all of those at actual donor meetings. And so he's at these donor events where he's telling them, look, I need more NIL. I need more of this. I need more of that. And they started to listen to him because at a certain point, he recognized that Saban discount was not going to last forever. And for us, we don't have an Oklahoma discount. We've got to outspend Texas for some players. And sure, development is one that we can leverage. Certain players do see that. They're like, yeah, me and my family's good. I can handle not taking the maximum amount. I'm going to take this, get developed, and head to the league. And some players are good for that. But not all players have that capabilities. I mean, there was some players in high school that I wish we could have got our hands on that ended up going elsewhere because financially it just made more sense. And so for us, Oklahoma's going to have to do a good job of showing the product on the field while also finding a way to get some change in the NIL going forward. But the good thing, revenue share is coming. That's going to help a lot.
Here's one thing I'll say about the Oklahoma-Texas population thing. And it's a point that Kyle Umlong, Texas Longhorns social media account, the best way you want to describe it.
Yeah, we say that.
Made, is that Texas, yes, they're the biggest brand in the state of Texas. They're one of the bigger brands in the country. But as far as competing for influence in Texas, they're competing with a lot of Power 4 programs, but with Baylor and TCU and Texas Tech and Houston and SMU now.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot. And if you consider the Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston metroplexes, Dallas-Fort Worth in particular, that is divided territory. Mm-hmm. As much as Texas might have influence there, so do the Aggies, so does Oklahoma. Like Oklahoma, that's why Oklahoma can recruit in DFW, is because they've got a strong presence there from a fan base perspective. And so while, yes, Texas might have a much bigger population, it's not all 35 million are not just going to Austin and unloading their bank accounts at Steve Sarkisian's feet and saying, take our money and spend it. No, it's divided territory. And I mean, for Oklahoma, you're competing against Oklahoma State, quote unquote, competing. I'm doing air quotes. You're competing against Oklahoma State. You are the big brand. And while there might be a little bit of a division in the state, it's not 50-50. I wouldn't venture to guess where it's at, but it's not a 50-50 split. And you have influence outside of Oklahoma, again, down into DFW. Now, Texas has influence outside of the state of Texas, but if we're just talking state to state, Oklahoma stretches down into DFW. It stretches into Texas territory.
Yeah, that's true. And we've shown influence in a lot of those areas. And other thing to remember is we have recruited nationwide for years. Yeah. That is not something that we've ever had a problem with. I mean, Danny Stutzman's from Florida, for crying out loud. We've got players that have come from multiple different areas. I mean, even a transfer porter, Dominic Williams, is from California, via TCU, but we have done a good job with nationwide recruiting. The big thing is it's all about the evaluating and then the development. You're going to have to take 4, 5, 4, and 3-star players, and some players not even ranked, and then you're going to be able to coach them up to the next level. It's all about what that player is capable of do. You're going to get some like that. You can't get 100% 5-stars. No team has ever done that. I mean, Texas A&M tried to do it, but they didn't finish with 32 or 25 5-stars. They got close. They got 9, but it's impossible. So because of that, the thought process is the Oklahoma Sooners are really good at recruiting everywhere. And financially, we've shown that we can spend. We've outspent some teams and won people. I mean, heck, I put it this way. Every time a player doesn't go to a particular school, they always say that the school bagged them. No matter what, Oklahoma has stuffed a lot of schools in lockers. So obviously, we're able to bag the people we really want, right? If that's how it works. Or you're saying that they go there because they can play immediately or whatever other excuse that's going to be thrown out there. My point is Oklahoma has done a good job with their recruiting nationwide. And so I understand what Barry's saying. Like I said, he has a lot more information in regards to probably how things are working behind the scenes. People are willing to tell him stuff. They refuse to tell me. But if you want to tell me, you can definitely hit me up on the expert, right there below. Send me a DM. Same thing to John. We would love to have some inside scoop information on that, but I digress. If Oklahoma wants to see success in the SEC, go ahead and start opening that checkbook again. But the big thing is, and this is the thing that fans don't like to hear when it comes to recruiting, if we spend on a guy that everyone says we should spend on and he doesn't work out, then what? I like to trust the staff in their evaluations. The problems we have right now on offense is because we're young. It's not because we don't have talent. It's because we're playing a whole bunch of redshirt freshmen and true freshmen and true sophomores. We're playing a lot of younger guys. And then at the wide receiver spot, we're playing a lot of the 2s and 3s that we normally wouldn't be playing as much. So because of that, it takes time to develop, right? We're developing them. Let them grow. They're growing before your eyes. But I don't think that we'll have a problem with recruiting long term. I think that we'll continue to build these classes like we are now with big dudes that want to dominate and compete in the SEC. We'll see success long term.
I just need to see them have that success on the offensive line. Because the offensive line transfer portal additions from this past offseason, Michael Tarkin aside, he's been fairly okay. But the rest of it has not worked out quite like anybody had hoped, given all the experience that they had coming to Oklahoma. If there's one area that you're looking at Texas and Oklahoma, they've got the resources, but they also have really strong evaluations. Like they're not missing on their transfer portal additions. Yeah, Oklahoma hasn't really had a star transfer portal addition other than Dylan Gabriel. Dominic Williams has been good. Deion Burks in his limited exposure, limited playing time has been really good for Oklahoma. But where's like the star addition that's really stood out and been like, that dude was good and he came to Oklahoma and broke out and now he's a star.
I mean, you can go with Eric Gray, Tyler Guyton,
but those guys weren't considered like top transfer portal additions when they came to Oklahoma. They were considered like, if you're talking NFL draft style, like 6th or 7th round picks or undrafted free agents.
With development
to Oklahoma. and they came to Oklahoma, got developed a little bit, and then broke out. Well, like, you need to also hit on some stars. You got to go get some dudes that are ready to play right now. And Nick Scourton, which you weren't going to get because he was going to go to Texas A&M, but you got to be able to land some of those guys and supplement the development that you're doing. And this is across the board. Often, I mean, Deion Burks had that potential, but he's been out for the last 3 games. And so you haven't really had the full Deion Burks experience, also because the offense has been cheeks. So, like, if you're going to spend on NIL, you certainly have to hit. But it's also got to come down to, hey, we've got to take some shots too. Like, NFL free agency is not a risk-free enterprise. NIL free agency and the transfer portal is not going to be a risk-free enterprise. You're going to miss some, but you also got to swing some. You don't hit home runs unless you take a swing. It's the old line from Signs, right? They asked, you had the home run record, but you also had the strikeout record. And Merrill's sitting there saying, it felt wrong not to swing. I need Oklahoma's coaching staff to have that mindset. It feels wrong not to swing. You're going to miss, you're going to hit on some, but I bet you're going to hit on far more than you miss on, because you are a good evaluating program. And so if you want to close the gap, because I do think that there is a gap between Oklahoma and Texas right now, because of what we saw in the Red River Showdown less than 2 weeks ago, there's a bit of a gap. If you want to close it, you need to hit on your evaluations, and you need to get out there and spend a little bit more money. Another team that there's a bit of a gap with, Ole Miss. We're going to talk keys to the game, give you our predictions for Saturday coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.